My name is Orion Fredericks, and I am a sculptor, fabricator, problem solver here in Vegas. And lately I've been doing kind of prototyping work for a game show called Win or Destroy. Working on prototypes for the 5D cinema experience with Lumen Forge. And making a little bit of fire sculpture for the festival circuit. I've met a few talented LED engineers and coders throughout the years. I've also come across some different products. They've definitely grown a lot, but I think integrating lighting is such a low cost to high impact addition. It's hard to, you just can't ignore it. And so lately I've tried to fill out the visual environment with as much light as I can when the thing is not on fire. Yeah, so behind me is, let's see, this big guy here. This is Gilly, or Galapterus corvus. And this sculpture is 21 feet toe to toe. And I made it completely out of scrap in my shop. And what I did for that is I bought myself a month of my time for my birthday, and I gave myself that time to put all the scrap in my shop into something that I wanted to build. And so I built Gilly, and it is a parent of its two younger generation critters. Here's one little guy, that's the female twin, and that's the male twin. I built those in 2000. All three of these sculptures are made from hand-forged stainless steel. So there's a wide variety of thicknesses in there, from 1/4 inch all the way down to 20 gauge, but it's all hand-worked material. And the fire combustion inside raises the internal temperature above 1900, 2000 degrees. So it has a good radiant heat to these as well. So the design phase is always very tricky for projects that you are asking for money for. So you want to design for the end-all effect, all the bells and whistles. And after you design for that and know how complex things can get, then you look at how much money you can get or what is realistic in that time frame, and you start scaling back your bells and whistles from there. My plan on that piece was to enable the core of the piece to always be able to evolve to those bells and whistles in the future. So my design phase always reflected on future evolvements of the structure. So I would leave myself points to access for thoughts down the road when more resource, time, or money came along. A lot of them really come from my largest drawing surface in the world, which is the floor. I use soapstone a lot. On some ideas, it starts with what is the hardest part of that idea? Let's figure that out first. If we can figure that out, we can go forward. And if things feel like they coalesce, then I draw the sculpture full scale on the ground. And that gives me a good idea on how to nest known material sizes to the stature that I'm looking for. So there's a little bit of give and take in the play of scale and the modularity of that scale of what's efficient to build in pieces, bring to a site, assemble, take down, and it doesn't involve a lot of heavy equipment or crew. So I try to keep it fairly tight on how things pack in nest. Yeah, Gilly in her box with all her goodies, her hoses, control system, safety gear, the hot water exchange for the propane. All of that is about 7,000 pounds. And I have shipped her around the country a little bit. And she performs really good in snow. I had her at the Breckenridge Fire Arts Festival, where they do a snow sculpture down the street, and I had fire sculpture on the other side of the street, and I was able to melt the ice out of the parking lot during that show, which was great. Well, I've definitely had a good deal of exposure to fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, material sciences, and all of these things are, I failed in high school. I did not compute. And it really took learning, being inspired by the processes of materials to then allow me to meet masters in those fields and then to learn from them, who are not necessarily teachers, but understood the material. And if you were inspired to understand the material, they were willing to share their information, their knowledge. And I was lucky enough to transition from being a potter, a ceramic guy, just making clay pots and slab forms, and going to college to major in ceramics, for me to get distracted into glass blowing and metal forming and metal casting, and then have access to all these other elements that further inspired me. So I kind of had an ongoing hunger for knowledge and materials and the processes which it took to get things to transform, until I met several masters in California that I'd worked with for several years that inspired me to work more with the alchemy of elements and how elements react to each other: plasma, fire, water, and all these things require math and more robust materials. I think that's why I transitioned from ceramics into more of the steels and glasses. Well, starting Burning Man in the 2000s, and Lightning in a Bottle for several years, Coachella in the early 2000s, Symbiosis Festival, most recently the Exusa Terra Traiuctus, the big portal, was up there as a homage to the passage of awakening for the eclipse. And the last large piece made for the Burning Mans was La Atrata, which were 3 giant moths made with team fire sculptor team Therm. And what was the last? Oh, I made a new piece for the New Year's show for Insomniac's New Year's show. And that new piece was a crystal heater that has a water circulation system in it to regulate the temperature of the propane as well as the surface temperature of the fire sculpture, so I could get the most efficient heat for the audience. An SNRG, local show, which is organized out in the desert here near Beatty. I brought Gilly actually up to that. She spent some time out there performing nightly for that show. If I trust other people with my sculpture if they understand what it is and what it took to make it. Then I feel there is a weight of understanding that is shared, and I can agree with that. I have put Gilly in a box and no one knew what was inside, shipped it across country, and it definitely got beat up a lot. But my pieces are really strong, so it didn't get affected too much. I just got Gilly home with about 30 extra rodents in the box. So they made a home in it, and that's cool. It was okay. Yeah, a lot of my sculptures tend to attract things that want to live inside them or make a nest in them. Frogs, spiders, birds, it's all over the place. I always find little critters finding nooks and crannies in my pieces. So I think I ask anyone who feels like they do have inspiration and creative juices in them that are unsure of, say, their origin. Let me just say, you don't need to understand where that inspiration comes from, just that it's there. And that's a lot of lively, good, positive energy for you to utilize in our coming challenges day to day of how we figure out how to remain sane, healthy, and happy as humans and work together. So I think both creatively and pragmatically, that inspiration is there for all of us. Thank you, Vegas Unveiled, for joining me, Orion Fredericks, in my shop, and I wish you all the best and stay healthy.